Hey, and welcome to Eat Out at Home, the podcast. This is the place for those who love cooking and creating connections through food. I'm your host, Chef Evelyn, and on this podcast, I share with you my favorite tips and tricks for enjoying life one bite at a time. If you're ready for today's episode, sit back, relax, grab a snack, and let's dive in. Hey, and welcome back to Eat Out at Home, the podcast. And today I want to talk about cooking at home as a form of sparking, enhancing, and being curious about your own personal creativity. And I know you're like, where is this coming from? But I did an episode a little while ago and I was talking about the cost of convenience. And one of the things that I think gets overlooked when encouraging people to cook at home is the creative aspect. And a lot of times the focus is on, cooking at home is healthier. Cooking at home will save you money. And it's like, if that was enough to motivate us to cook at home consistently, everybody would be cooking at home. And so obviously for some of us, it's not enough. And I recently recorded an episode. I don't know what order you're going to hear these in, when I was talking about that cooking at home is a form of community care. But in this case, I want to talk about how cooking it at home is a great catalyst for your creativity. And I want to start by this. This is something that I've always known as a chef, and I've thought about in respect to other artistic pursuits, that I think all of us have a level or a measure of artistry in us, regardless of the way we express it, whether it's dance, whether it's the written word, the spoken word, whether it's singing, whether it's sculptures, whether it's woodworking or painting, whether it's numbers and science and data, whether it's hairstyling or fashion or budgets or taxes. Like, all of it to me is a form of creative expression. And one of the things that I find really unique about the culinary world is it's one of the few, if only, art forms that is a full sensory experience that taps into all five senses, right? So, you could be a fragrance designer and you're tapping into, your sense of smell, and maybe even the design of the bottle is tapping into your sense of sight. And you can be a singer and you're tapping into our hearing, and maybe you're dancing on stage, and so we can see you moving and you're tapping into our sense of sight, or art or poetry, right? Or all of these different things. But when it comes to being able to see, hear, touch, taste, and smell, right? Because maybe you're a floral artist and you're tapping into the sense of smell and the sense of sight, and maybe even the sense of touch, if we want to take it that far. But with culinary arts, it's a full sensory experience. And that's why I feel it's so important that you don't have to be a professional chef. You don't have to be amazing, but I feel that every person should at least try to cook for themselves on some frequency. Yes, it's healthier. Yes, it saves us money, but it taps into and is a catalyst for our creativity, right? Because it's engaging all of the senses. So I want you to think about it like this, right? One of the things that I love to talk about is going outside of your norm when it comes to food. One of my favorite phrases used to be, there's so much good food in the world to be eating the same thing over and over again. And there's so many different fruits and vegetables and plants and spices and herbs and cooking techniques and inspiration that you can have a lifelong journey and almost never eat the same thing twice if you so decided. But I also think about how when it comes to creativity, cooking, you have to get in there with your hands. And a lot of art forms, you have to get in with your hands. And I was telling someone recently, I was like, there's a word, and I wish that I could remember what the word is, that talks about the benefits to your brain for doing something manual with your hands and something that's very tactile. There is an actual phrase for it. And if I can find it, I'll leave it in the show notes. But I haven't been able to Google or Chat GPT it back into existence. But I know that it's there. But when it comes to creativity, I want you to think about this, right? When you're cooking, there's visual cues on, did something change color? Did it expand? Did it brown? Is it going from, opaque to transparent, from transparent to opaque? There's these visual cues. But even there are auditory cues, right? If it's a super big sizzle when you're first getting started, and then it kind of, dwindles down to just a little crackling, right? A roaring boil, things like that, the sound of a grill, all of that are indicators that help you adjust in your art in real time. The sense of smell, if you've ever made brown butter, then you go from this kind of creamy, salty smell to this kind of like nutty, warm smell. And there also is a visual transformation there, but the aroma. If you've ever just sauteed onions and garlic, you know what I'm talking about. Listen, and I don't even really eat pork like that anymore, but everybody knows the smell of bacon and what it can do for you. Or think about those of you who are coffee lovers and how just the smell of coffee brewing in the morning makes you feel something on the inside. It's not just the smell, it makes you feel something. Or fresh baked bread or fresh baked chocolate chip cookies. These things make us feel something, right? So, you've got the auditory cues, but you've got the sense of smell. Okay, you've got the transformation. You think about, you take something like asparagus that looks kind of, dull or whatever, but then by the time you either blanch it or roast it or grill it, it's this bright, vibrant green. Or how you can mix blueberries into something and it turns this like violet, fuchsia, magenta color. Or if you add lemon to something and it has a chemical reaction, it changes into a different color. Like, you have all these things, but then you get to taste it, and you have all these sensories of taste, of sweet and salty and umami and bitter and sour and savory. You have all these sensations of just taste, but even of texture. Is it smooth? Is it creamy? Is it crunchy? Is it crackly? Is it bitter? Is it hard? Is it stringy? Is it tough? Is it tender? It's this full body experience, and all of these cues, all of these sensory cues to help you alternate and adjust your art. I don't know if there's another art form that is that encompassing for all of the senses and that can lead to so much creativity, right? Because how many times have you been cooking something and then something that you've been trying to solve in your brain, like it instantly comes to you, completely unrelated, because you've kind of narrowed in focus on the task that's at hand. Cooking and baking in particular, baking specifically, is not something that you can multitask a lot of things with at the same time. It requires focus, and so it requires your mind to settle down. And it allows you to tap into that creativity because you have to slow down. You have to think about, what is it that you're trying to create with this, with these ingredients, with these things that are made available to you. And not just the ingredients, but the tools and the heat, right? So I think about, there are certain forms of art that people use by burning the paper. And it's fascinating because they've decided that in addition to having paints and oils and chalks and pens and crayons and pastels, that another thing that they want to be able to create and draw with is fire. And this fire and heat is the same thing in culinary, right? We also have acid, okay? And we have different types of heat: conduction, convection, all of these different things: direct heat, indirect heat, roasting, broiling, simmering, grilling, all of these, sauteing, right? Pan frying, deep frying, shallow frying. And I just, maybe I'm nerding out a little bit because I am a culinary artist myself, and maybe you are too. But if you're not, it doesn't mean you can't pretend to be one at home. And if you find yourself, you're working on something else, maybe you're an author, maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're working on a project for work, maybe you're a dancer, maybe you're a singer, and then maybe you're an interior designer, and there's something this causing a creative block, I would encourage you to get into the kitchen. Get into the kitchen, make something you haven't made before, and watch your creativity open up and expand. Watch it grow. And, like I said before, we talk a lot about, how cooking at home, oh, yes, it saves you money. Oh, yes, it's supposed to be better for you. And that's fantastic. But when you really think about cooking at home as a catalyst for enhancing and exploring your creativity, I think you'll see it in a different way, and that cooking can serve you regardless of what other artistic discipline you have chosen to pursue. And I do think of business as art, and I think of, science as a form of art. It's just different. But even if you're into what people would traditionally consider art, I want you to think about how spending some time in the kitchen and cooking can help you enhance that and get more curious. Because when you start realizing, oh, I want to borrow this technique from this cuisine, and I want to borrow this ingredient from this cuisine, and I want to add in these flavor profiles and these spices from this culture, you will start to do that in other areas of your life. If you're a singer and you've been singing, let's say, pop your whole life, but then you get in the kitchen and you start experimenting, you go, maybe I want to go study a little bit of opera and bring some of the elements of opera technique into my singing. Maybe I want to study a little bit of R&B and bring some R&B flavor into my singing. Maybe I want to study how overtones and all these things that monks do in monasteries, and maybe I want to use some of that knowledge in my singing. Or if you're dancing, maybe you're a ballet dancer, but you went and learned river water dance or tap or hip hop or jazz or, traditional African dance or, Latin dances. And while you may not be an expert in that, dabbling in that and bringing elements of that back to your base, again, expands your creativity. And a great way to start exercising that muscle is in the kitchen. So with that being said, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. But yes, cooking at home is a catalyst for your creativity. If you're feeling blocked, if there's some life decisions you need to make, I promise you, get in the kitchen, cook a meal. It'll calm your mind, and you will come up with some creative answers. With that being said, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone or tag me on Instagram, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you're ready to start cooking at home consistently, make sure you join the Eat Out at Home Challenge. Visit chefevelyn.com/challenge for all of the details. If you're curious about what I'm cooking in between episodes, make sure to give me a follow on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for some delicious behind the scenes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify to leave us a review. Remember, eating out at home allows you to cook better, eat healthier, save money, and create community. And most importantly, cooking at home is the ultimate form of self-care. I'll see you in the next episode.